Leviticus 24, let's call this one an eye for an eye, because this is the chapter that holds that famous passage about old school biblical justice. And we want to talk about that. But before we get to the passage about an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, life for life, let's talk about the story that happens before it in roughly verses 10 through 16. It's a story of a young man who gets into a fight and curses God because of his anger during the course of the fight. And the thing it immediately brought to mind for me was the need to control our tempers, especially as men. It can be so difficult these days, as much as in any era going all the way back to this, to reach a point in life where we get to a crossroads and we automatically have it in our hearts to do the right thing. It takes preparation ahead of time. Told the illustration here that I stole from some brother who was a great singer years back, who also was gifted to be able to preach. I don't remember his name. I just did, actually, but I'm not going to say it because I'm not sure I have it exactly right. But during one of those situations where he was coming in to bless us from out of town, not only with the song but with the word, he talked about the illustration of the toothpaste tube. And he said, look, whatever you fill a toothpaste tube with, that's what you're going to expect to get when you squeeze it. And so most of the times we squeeze a tube of toothpaste and we expect to get toothpaste because that's exactly what's been put in it. And so likewise, the things that we put into our hearts during the times when we're relaxed will be exposed under pressure. And we don't necessarily know what was on this young man's heart, whether or not he had, since it says he was the son of an Egyptian and a Hebrew, we don't know how much of his curse towards God was built up resentment towards some of the people in Israel, or whether or not he simply knew that by cursing God, he could lash out at the man individually. He had no gripe towards God whatsoever. Either way, it's important for us to understand how to deal with our grudges in peacetime, because when we're under pressure, we don't have time to really think and respond in a perfect way. And so there's a piece of the story that my heart has to go out to, because I know what it's like to be under pressure and to respond in ways that simply I would like to say are out of character, but still reflect some of the things, the residual bitterness that I haven't gotten over in my heart. So it's a piece of the story that makes me sympathize for the young man and wants me to take a lesson from his mistake and make sure that in these times I'm dealing with my anger in the right way, so that when I'm under pressure, as the pressure increases, I'm able to respond in a healthy way. But the whole concept of an eye for an eye is the story that comes after that. And even though it's the kind of thing that makes us kind of wipe our brow and say, whew, thank goodness we're not under the old law anymore, there's a lot of wisdom in an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and life for the life. See, it goes back to that concept of accountability, where we said the altar sat at the entrance of the courtyard to the tabernacle, so that every time the people of God approached God, they knew that accountability was a very real thing. This law goes to that. And in the absence of this law, I think we start to see another biblical concept that we talked about not too long ago describe our times. And it says, because the sentence against the wicked deed is not punished, the hearts of men are fully set to do evil. And so when I was listening to a brother preach about forgiveness today, and then reading this on the heels of that, or listening to this passage and reading on the heels of that, it really struck me that even though we no longer live under an old covenant principle of eye for eye, tooth for tooth, limb for limb, etc., to the degree I've been injured and I still want repayment, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, limb for limb, I can still be locking myself into a repayment of a debt I owe to somebody else who I've injured, who may want against me, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, limb for limb. And so forgiveness seems cheesy. I know it seems cheesy to me. But when I understand that God is a higher intellect that's telling me to forgive for a reason I can't understand, then I start to realize ways in which I'm actually unlocking levels of pain and suffering I'm living under that I just don't have to the degree I can get to a higher level of letting someone go, even when they have no intent of apologizing. See, sometimes withholding that apology is coming from a person who fully knows if they can tempt you to not forgive, they can keep you lingering in suffering. And so in some ways, you're actually doing your enemy a favor when you don't forgive. And there are people in this world who are not only wise enough, but wicked enough to know exactly what they're doing to you when they're provoking you to a lack of forgiveness. So God willing, we will all reach a place where we can free ourselves and others by letting go and understanding God's wisdom and telling us to do so.